Friends, I would argue that those that are fond of all things von Zuffenhausen would look at that and say that is absolutely, positively a Porsche. I would also argue those that don't know where Zuffenhausen is would look at this and bet their last dollar, euro, pound, or shekel that is absolutely a car. A fast one, but a car. I am here to argue that is neither. This is a science experiment gone horribly wrong. This is closer to a spaceship than a car. It's got two sets of wings on it, but if I were to put more wings on it, I guarantee you I could launch this thing into outer space. So with that, we are going to do our first ever tech review on a spaceship, and we are going to start, we always start with the engine, but in this case we're going to start with the propulsion system, which is not there. Now, I don't know what the German equivalent is to NASA, but whoever they are, they have elected to bury the propulsion system way down there underneath a lot of fans and some decorative pieces. So I'm going to tell you about it rather than show it to you, which is what I normally do. There are two flavors that are on offer. This is the basic flavor. This is the turbo. Let's call this vanilla. And then there is a Turbo S, even though this one's black, we'll call that chocolate. In the vanilla model, it makes do with a measly 540 horsepower. And then there's the chocolate, which does just a little bit better, 580 horsepower. Let me repeat that, 580 horsepower. That's really close to 600. Now in the vanilla model, it gets by with 486 pounds of torque, comes in at 1950 RPM, stays flat all the way to 5,000 RPM. Now, in the chocolate model, the torque changes. It's 516 pound-feet of torque, comes in at 2,100 RPM, stays flat all the way up to 4,250 RPM. So in this case, for 20 seconds, the torque can increase to 523 pound-feet. And in the case of the Turbo S, the chocolate model, 553 pound-feet of torque. And that happens at 2,250 RPM all the way up to 4,000 RPM, and it's the same on both. Now, how does this all happen? Well, a couple of things. Number one, for the first time ever, the turbocharger is different between this, the vanilla, and the chocolate model. Basically, bigger set of impellers. Now, in both cases, they both have variable turbine geometry. Then there's something very interesting here, and that's dynamic boost. One of the problems with boost, and you get the lag, is effectively the throttle closes, and that's where the boost pressure drops. But what they've done here is they keep, in this dynamic boost, they keep the throttle open, but what they do is they shut off the fuel supply. So it keeps the boost going, and you don't have that turbo lag. So this is something you and I are going to have to unpack in the full first drive review. Yeah, that's a lot. But now let's press on to the stuff that hasn't changed. McPherson struts here, multi-link here. Anti-roll bar here, anti-roll bar here. Still all-wheel drive, and still anything you want as long as it's a PDK. Please, oh please, oh please, Zuffenhausen, let's change that. Now, let's talk about stuff that has changed. We said that this is all-wheel drive. Well, the front axle is now water-cooled. Then let's look at the back. Notice it is a wider arse end there. It is now the widest rear end on any 911. It's basically just about under 3 inches wider than a base 991.2. So previously in the 991.1 Turbo and Turbo S, the width of the rear wheels were different. Now they are the same, hence this whole body thing. At least I'm reading between the lines there. Then there's the weight of the vehicle behind me. So this is 3,516 pounds, and then the chocolate version is 3,527 pounds. Let's go over to the brakes. Now, you look at those, you see red calipers. That tells you metallic rotors. But notice, 380 millimeter diameter. That's 14.96 inches. If you go to the Turbo S, the calipers change to yellow, which means the rotors changed to carbon ceramic, and they're fitted as standard. I think that's very generous of Porsche. Usually they don't give things as standard. And those go up to 410 millimeters. People, that's 16.14 inch diameter rotors on a car. Do you see what I mean about this whole spaceship thing? Then there's steering, and notice I'm pointing back here because there is rear wheel steering. Now this is not new for a turbo. It is new for the Carreras, because basically what they've done is they've made the wheelbase an accordion. And what they do is they take the steering, and so the rear wheels in low speed situations will turn up to 2.8 degrees in the opposite direction here. But then at high speed situations, they turn in the same direction a little over 1 degree. And the whole idea is to get the benefits of a shorter wheelbase car in like a parking lot, or in high speed situations like changing lanes, you get the benefits of a longer wheelbase car. Now let's go to the inside. I want to show you a couple things in there, and believe it or not, it has nothing to do with fancy seats. No, we are not going to play a quick round of the options game, and that's really for two reasons. Number one, this specific 911 is not fitted with a lot of options, which is very strange. And number two, that really underscores one of the changes from 991.1 to 991.2 turbos. That's a lot of numbers, I gotta say. There's more stuff fitted as standard, which is very unusual for Porsche. So, for example, there's more leather, there's surround sound audio, Apple CarPlay, which is always a good thing. But most importantly, Sport Chrono is now fitted as standard, Turbo and Turbo S, vanilla and chocolate. Actually, one of the things I didn't tell you was the smaller diameter steering wheel is now fitted as standard on the Turbo and the Turbo S. So this round knob here, basically it's 4 different settings that they have now in Sport Chrono. There is a Sport Plus, a normal, as well as an individual mode. Now, there's a button here. This button, this we have to talk about. So do you guys, have you ever seen the Adam West Batman series? Specifically, do you remember when they would jump in the car and they would say, seatbelts fastened, turbines to speed, ready Batman? Well, this is the closest thing to turbines to speed. Basically, this button, it kind of maps to that overboost we talked about, but it does a couple more things. Number one, it downshifts the PDK, keeps the engine between 3,000 and 6,000 RPM. And then what it's really doing is it's taking that variable turbine geometry we talked about, it's closing the vanes in the turbo so there is more response in the engine. Now this is only limited to 20 seconds, so this smart screen here that's either navigation, radio, or like trip computer, that kind of stuff, whatever is displayed there is blacked out, and there's like a countdown timer of 20 seconds. It is pretty cool, and I kind of do feel like I am Batman leaving the Batcave. We'll play around with that in the full first drive review, but that is about it, other than the black on black, terrible color combo and no sunroof. But let's step outside. So in summary, what do we got? Well, exactly what I told you when we started this episode. That is a spaceship, which means I need to turn this around to you guys and leave you with a question. A spaceship means that is a technological marvel. So I am going to pose the following question to you guys. What other car do you feel is more of a technological marvel than this? But here's the one parameter. You cannot pick an electric car. So the Tesla doesn't count. And you know what? Don't just tell me which you would choose, why you choose it as a technological marvel, and give me an example why it's more technologically superior than this. Let me know in the comments below or via our social media, MotoManTV all one word, MotoManTV all one word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, I want to leave you with 2 things. Number 1, make sure you download our fancy new mobile application, which you can download for free from Apple iTunes and Google Play. And oh, by the way, we are live on 5 international airlines, and perhaps you should subscribe to us on YouTube. And number 2, I want to leave you with a fun fact, and yes, it's more numbers about this. So vanilla, the one here, only does 198 miles an hour. Chocolate, 205. Till I see you next time, bis später.